All aboard the toxic gossip train. You're chugging down the tracks of misinformation. The toxic gossip train. You got a one-way ticket to manipulation station. Toxic gossip train. Tie me to the tracks and harass me for my past. Cause rumors look like facts. If you don't mind the gaps, I won't survive in the crash. But hey, at least you're having fun.
You don't even care about reality, you care more about the fantasy of it all. Hey guys, what is up? It is Cam. Welcome back to my channel. Alright, so in today's video, we are going to be talking about parasocial relationships, and more specifically, when parasocial relationships take a dark turn. The reason why I wanted to make this video is because there has been a lot of discourse on the internet recently regarding the situation that is going on with Colleen Ballinger and her alleged child grooming. And I really wanted to talk about this situation because I think it is very interesting how it has begun to play out, how it kind of surfaced in general, and how it almost seems as if this situation didn't start just now. And it definitely seems like it came back to bite her in the butt. I also wanted to go into a little bit of a deep dive into fan culture because I think that plays a really huge role in what's going on right now with her. I also wanted to cover idol worship and kind of delve into my own personal experience whenever it comes to fan culture, idol worship, parasocial relationships, and all things that are involved in this particular conversation. Because I've noticed that wanting proximity to people that have celebrity or status of some sort creates a recipe for disaster, especially when you add kids into the mix or have the famous person supporting weird behavior in general. So before we get into it, make sure you go ahead, give this video a big thumbs up, leave a comment down below of what your opinions are on parasocial relationships, and make sure you go ahead and subscribe to this channel if you have not already, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another one of my uploads. If you want to keep up with my beauty and lifestyle content, you can go and subscribe to my second channel. And if you want to keep up with me outside of YouTube, you can follow me on all of my other social media. I'll make sure to have everything linked down below. And without further ado, let's get into the video. Let's get into what a parasocial relationship even is, because I feel like we throw that word around a lot, but do we really even know what it actually means? A parasocial relationship is a one-sided relationship formed when one party extends energy, interest, and time, and the other person doesn't even know they exist, according to the National Register of Health Services psychologists. So I'm sure you're probably wondering at this point, how do parasocial relationships even form in the first place? So here's my take on it. There's this illusion that people can gain as much knowledge as possible about the public figure that they really like, to the point where they would consider themselves to know enough about said figure to have close proximity with them. Think of a really close friendship. So I went on the internet just to see what some of the people there were saying about parasocial relationships, because I think it's really important to have a broad take about what these things are, especially if we want to attack the subject from a more neutral perspective. So here's what the people of the internet had to say. I'm begging some of you, stop getting into weird parasocial relationships with the big artists and stop speculating or making assumptions about their private lives. You are not automatically their friend. You're a fan. It's okay to be a fan. Just don't get creepy with it. People would be way less upset when their fave gets exposed for being problematic if they stopped forming unhinged parasocial relationships with these people and assuming that they share the same values. Very disturbing how big internet celebrities take advantage of their young fans and form predatory parasocial relationships with them to seek validation because they know teenagers and young adults are so easily impressionable. Please get a freaking life, loser. I get why people form parasocial relationships with their idols. Maybe those idols helped them go through a tough time, gave them fleeting happiness, or inspired them to be a better human. But then there are those who take it too far and become the absolute worst. After browsing the internet to figure out what people were saying about parasocial relationships, I decided to take it a little bit further and go ahead and do some research and see what actual doctors and such had to say about the matter. This article by Dr. Cynthia Vinnie on the Very Well Mind website said, like in-person relationships, parasocial relationships start when someone meets and get acquainted with a media persona. This initial parasocial interaction might involve seeing the individual on a TV show or movie, following them on social media, or even interacting with them online or in real life. If the persona makes an impression that causes the individual to think about them beyond the interaction, parasocial interactions can lead to a parasocial relationship. In turn, parasocial relationships can be strengthened by further parasocial interaction, sometimes leading to parasocial attachment. Moreover, if the parasocial relationship ends, either because the media figure dies, the show or movie series they appear in ends. For example, when the TV show Friends ended, those with the strongest parasocial relationships with one of the characters expressed the most distress. So, what is my overall take on the idea of parasocial relationships? I think that most people are okay with them, especially when it comes to popular celebrities and influencers. And if they're not okay with it, then they actually go ahead and take it a step further and encourage the parasocial relationship, because there's no true voice of reason to say that it isn't okay and why it isn't necessarily. And my question is, how mentally healthy is it for you to be genuinely obsessed with the person that doesn't even know you, down to the point where you know incredibly personal information about them, you're willing to defend behavior that is blatantly wrong, and you consider your relationship with the person to be something that it's not? It's a special relationship to you as the fan or supporter, but the celebrity or influencer really wouldn't be able to pick you out from a can of paint. And this is under the idea that you've had no true contact with them. But if they constantly interact with you online, then there may be some sort of basis to jump off of in the idea that the relationship has somewhat of a foundation, especially in terms of depth of relationship. So let's talk about parasocial relationships in the real world. I've made a video in the past where I've talked about parasocial relationships, so I'm definitely aware that it's not a new concept. And by the way, it was regarding the scandal that James Charles went through with some of his younger fans. And at this time, I remember coming to the realization that parasocial relationships can actually be so dangerous. And this is because the fan genuinely believes that they're forming some sort of close relationship with the celebrity or influencer, when in reality, you as the fan are not taking up any real space in that person's mind. The celebrity will interact and engage with you because that's kind of the thing to do. Dare I say, it's out of obligation. And maybe after a while they would have a good time if they were to see that you were a cool, fun person. But on the other hand, if you're super obsessed, it could trigger their ego and gas their head up. And at this point, they can start using their status in your life as a power trip. To them, you're more like a drop in the bucket, especially because 9 times out of 10, they usually have people in their real lives that they actually care about and have those close relationships with. As the fan, the celebrity knows nothing about you, whereas you may know everything about them because you've dedicated a season of your life and gone to great lengths to figure out everything there is to figure out about this famous person. But they simply don't know you, as a person at least. They may not actually care about you, aside from appreciating your support or caring about the fact that you literally worship them because that's how they make their money. And what's worse is you really don't know them either. And this idea is exacerbated when it comes to children and minors because they don't really know any better. They're a lot more gullible, vulnerable, and naive, and they don't always have the maturity and mental development to understand the reality of the situation. It would then be up to the adult in the situation to stop the exchanges from becoming inappropriate. But if they choose not to be wise about it, the interactions can end up escalating into something that is harmful for all parties involved. So before we get too deep into it, let's go ahead and hear a word from our sponsor. Thank you so much, Dossier, for sponsoring this portion of today's video. I believe everyone everywhere at this point, and especially you guys, know how much I love fragrance and smelling good. That's why I love partnering with Dossier. Dossier is a company that believes everyone deserves to smell like luxury, and I believe that too. As someone that has developed a large personal collection of fragrances, ranging from very cheap to very expensive, I know just how costly it can be to smell good. Dossier cuts down that price barrier and gives you the chance to smell luxurious at an affordable price. With prices starting from $29, you have a wide selection of fragrances to choose from that are inspired by the designer fragrances that are currently popular and sold in most major retailers. Dossier's fragrances are a fraction of the price and smell just like the fragrances they're inspired by, which means you can also build your perfume collection without breaking the bank. It's so good that I even started using some of Dossier's fragrances to build my man's collection. We're all about to be out here with bomb collections and smelling phenomenal thanks to our friends at Dossier. For more information on how you can get your hands on some affordable luxury-inspired fragrances, see my description box down below and click the link. It will take you straight to their website where you can get your perfume collection started. And thank you again to Dossier for sponsoring this portion of today's video. Now back to your regularly scheduled content. So let's talk about Colleen Ballinger's mistake, because I'm pretty sure at this point we have all seen the headlines, we have all seen what's been going on with social media in regards to the controversy that she's going through. Let's go ahead and pick out the elephant in the room.
Here are the allegations that Miranda Sings is facing from several of her fans. And just a warning, this video mentions grooming. So several of her fans came forward accusing her of inappropriate conduct with her as teenagers, and one of them even accused her of grooming him. A fan says that when he was just 13 years old, she sent him a pair of her bra and panties. And in 2020, she confirmed this in a video where she called those actions stupid. The fan that she sent this to said that she, him, and a bunch of other fans were in a group chat with her called Weenies, and that on several occasions that she brought up sex. Again, he was a teenager, and he said that she would ask him things like if he was a virgin or what his favorite sexual position was. He also said that when he was 14, he sent a message to the chat saying that his butt looks good, and then allegedly she requested pics. And another fan said that in 2016, after Colleen divorced her husband Joshua Evans, she would trauma dump on all of them in the chat, and that they were basically enlisted to defend her online. A fan said that he would be in class DMing her on his iPad about her abusive ex-husband, and that there were even some school nights where he would stay up until 4 a.m. trying to calm her down. So that fan, Adam McIntyre, made a YouTube video a few weeks ago where he shared a lot of this stuff, and he claimed that Colleen Ballinger grooms her fans for her own benefit, and that's what happened to him. She has not commented on these allegations yet, and she's also stopped posting new videos since Adam posted his a few weeks ago.
Alright, here are the actual screenshots where Colleen was inappropriate with her minor fans. Again, I did not want to share these, but her fans continually keep asking, where's the proof, this is fake, and it's frankly getting exhausting because there's so much evidence. Here is where Colleen asked Adam when he was 15 if he was a virgin. Here is where she changed her group chat name to Winter C Blockers, and she asked her fans, tell me what move I should make on a very inappropriate word for her boyfriend. That's her boyfriend's name, all mixed in with bad words. And yes, there are minors in this chat where she asked this. Her minor fans answer her, and she says, okay, I'm gonna go to him and say, I want to stress eat your wiener. Again, minors are here. To me, though, the inappropriate jokes are not even the worst part. I really think the worst part is where she spoke so personally of her mental health with her minor fans. Like here where she says, hi, everyone hates me. I just can't imagine being like a fan that's like 12 or 13 or 14 and hearing this from my idol, and how much stress that would cause me and how much I would feel I would need to comfort them. Like, can you just imagine like Taylor Swift says everyone hates me and is clearly depressed, and you're obsessed with her and you feel the need to make it better, but you're a kid. Like, that is so much to put on a child. And she spoke a lot about her divorce and complained that her ex said that she was cheating. And again, these kids had to comfort her, even though a lot of these kids also liked her ex-husband. And I think Adam even said this in his video, that he really like worshipped their relationship, and it felt like a divorce of his parents in a way. So he's having to process that information, but also comfort her about it. But she really kept her fans hooked in these group chats by like giving little tidbits, and they got more information than the rest of the fandom, and it created like this personal relationship. And again, she fostered these parasocial relationships with fans. She made kids feel more important because it got her a lot of loyalty. And I know there's people that be like, oh, she's not a real predator. And like, okay, I'm not saying that she is. What I'm saying is that she used grooming tactics and predatory behavior to get what she wanted out of fans, which was that they buy her merchandise and show up to her shows and give her free labor, and most importantly, attack anybody who attacks her. And you see that in my comments so much. And the things that these kids say is so scary to me. Like, I will always stand by her. Like, I'm a ride or die. Nothing could convince me that Colleen isn't great. That kind of defense is a direct response to the way that she talked about kids here. And even with all this, I guarantee you her fans are going to go into my comments and say this was faked. But I promise you, if it was fake, Colleen would shout that from the rooftop. They'll read this and still say, I just can't believe it. And I understand why. It's because you are trapped in a very toxic parasocial relationship.
So I have to start by admitting that I was actually a consistent viewer of Colleen's content here on YouTube. And now I only watched her vlogs, but I've always thought of her to be a very quirky and different kind of person. Seeing her motherhood journey was interesting to me. Her kids are cute, and I thought it was cool that she ended up having twins, because I'm kind of obsessed with the idea of having twins. Listen, don't judge me. And I honestly don't blame me for sticking around for that very reason. In no way would I have considered considered myself a fan of her, but it actually became a part of my daily routines to watch her daily vlogs, especially when I would get home at the end of the night from a very, very long day of school. It was a nice change of pace from the vastly different reality that I lived in. Nothing more, nothing less. And I was also around back in 2020 when she went through the first controversial allegations of child grooming and racism. And I also watched her daily vlogs back then too. And I can't honestly say that I remember all of my thoughts when that situation was playing out. And I also can't say exactly why I started watching her again. What I do remember though is thinking that she had gotten herself into some real trouble. I analyzed both situations, and in this case focusing more on the grooming allegations, and I came to the conclusion that she had messed up pretty bad and just had a really large lapse of judgment as an adult. I genuinely didn't think that she meant any true harm, but the circumstances of the situation tried to make her out to be some kind of devious predator. Also, I didn't have all the information, and you know how people say that there's always three sides to the story: side A, side B, and the truth. I wanted to be sympathetic to both parties, and although it did cause me to side-eye Colleen a little bit, I really did think she just screwed up on accident and ended up getting blasted. She also addressed the situation, so I figured she would take it as a learning opportunity and never do something like this ever again. So fast forwarding to what's going on now. I was actually incredibly shocked to find out that something like this was coming out about her again. You would think there would be learning and growing, but sometimes looking at a situation from the outside in doesn't mean that you have all of the fine details of what's really going on. A lot of people have said that she is a groomer with absolutely no remorse. She has been getting hit over and over again with the mean girl trope, basically saying that she's purposefully trying to turn certain fans against other fans in order to be in her favor and cast her in the best light possible, and also to silence the people that have been harmed by her, which are all very, very valid concerns. And I think having this situation happen again with the same allegations makes me even think twice about what's going on and whether or not I should continue to support her in the future. I think if you mess up once, it's plausible that people would have enough grace in order to give you another chance and learn from your mistakes. But when you make the same mistake twice, honestly, I believe this could probably be the nail in the coffin of her career. And it's really sad to say because she has been on the internet for over a decade and she has had a good run. She's made a lot of money. She's had the celebrity, the status, the fame, all of the things. And now with her having a family, it seemed to be like she was finally able to find some kind of path in life. But I think with all of this stuff coming out about her, this may really be a huge hit for her. I don't even know what the future of her content, her channel, or just anything that has to deal with her is going to be like moving forward. So like I said at the beginning of this video, I want to do a little bit of a deep dive into fan culture because I feel like that is a very, very prevalent topic in the overall realm of parasocial relationships, and especially when it comes to the whole situation with Colleen Ballinger, because fans are gonna be fans, and that's pretty much all I can say about it. And so I want to speak about fan culture from my own perspective because I think it can be incredibly easy to be judgmental about why people are the way that they are, especially when it comes to their favorite famous person. And so I think a little deep dive is necessary in order to explore the idea of fandoms, standing, and general fan culture. And in doing research for this video, I ended up going out in search of a more concrete definition on what fan culture means. And I came across this article on the Grinnell College Subcultures and Sociology website. And when discussing society's perception of fan culture, it reads, Jolie Jensen had addressed the role of class and elitism in fan and participatory culture. She argues that because the word fan comes from the word fanatic, meaning crazy, there is an us versus them divide between fan culture and mainstream society. Once defined as deviant through their fanaticism, those who are a part of fan culture become characterized as disreputable, even dangerous to others. Jensen describes two characterizations of pathological fans: the obsessed loner, who has been influenced by the media to the point of entering into an intense fantasy relationship with a celebrity figure, and the frenzied fan, who represents the screaming and crying teenagers in a crowd, or the roaring, maniacal sports fan rioting at a game. These characterizations ultimately result in stigmatizing fan culture, as the participants are easily stereotyped. Jensen states that although these stereotypes are not representative of fan culture as a whole, they reveal our beliefs about modern society and our relationship to it. Another theory Jensen describes is the idea that some fans use fan culture as a form of psychological compensation, meaning that fans make up for the lack of fulfillment in their lives with intense focus on fictional reality. However, this psychological compensation does not apply to all members of fan culture, as there is a difference between those fans who replace interpersonal relationships with media audience relationships, and those whose participation in fan culture is supplemental to or aids in making interpersonal relationships. In fact, making interpersonal relationships with those who are a part of the fan culture also aids in fan culture's participants' stigma management. Members of fan culture can refute the stereotype of the obsessed loner and argue that fandom is a social experience, therefore lessening the stigma associated with fan culture. Even so, in instances of excessive fandoms act as surrogate relationships and are often characteristics of socially isolated members of society. Jensen states that within fan culture, there are fans, fanatics, and deviants. Whereas fans seek identity and connections with others via a subject, fanatics view the subject as an important aspect of their identity, which is integral to their self-esteem. In contrast, researchers state that fans who they have labeled as deviants have low self-worth and as a result are prone to role engulfment, or the tendency to use the deviance related to fandom as a way to organize a concept of self. Essentially, Jensen argues that there is a very fine line between being a normal fan and excessive fandom, and this line is crossed when the difference between reality and fantasy becomes unclear. Furthermore, this line is constructed context dependent. So why do we care about fan culture at all? How is it relevant to the idea of parasocial relationships? Fans develop extensive knowledge and expertise about their shows or sports teams, also characteristically feeling a sense of ownership over their object of fandom. They also tend to seek intimacy with the object of their attention, personality, a program, a genre, a team. This intimacy could involve meeting a celebrity, getting a sportswoman's autograph, seeing an actor give a talk on stage at a convention, chatting with him or her in the bar afterwards, or even visiting real locations used in the filming of its TV series. Fans thus seek to break down barriers between themselves as subjects and their objects of fandom, their fan identity becoming a meaningful aspect of cultural and self-identity. So I want to quickly discuss my personal experience with fan culture, because for those of you that don't know anything about me, hi, I'm Cam, and I used to be a hardcore One Direction and 5 Seconds of Summer stan. Like, I was a part of stan Twitter. I was at every single live performance. Like, I'm pretty sure I was able to go to at least 5 or 6 live 5 Seconds of Summer concert performances before I left the fandom, because I just kind of grew out of it. And that experience was very, very interesting, because not only was I able to form close relationships with other people that were also in the fandom, I also formed this kind of parasocial relationship with the guys that were in the band. And the reason why I formed these parasocial relationships is because I genuinely took it upon myself to know everything that there was to know about these people. I was fully convinced in my head that if they met me, they would realize that I was an amazing person and they would fall in love with me, and we would ride off into the sunset living happily ever after. Despite the crazy discrepancy and age difference, we're not going to talk about that. The only thing I was concerned about was making sure that I was doing everything I could to heighten the chances of me being noticed by these people, whether that was going to concert, trying to get meet and greet tickets, tweeting thousands of tweets, sending DMs, etc., etc., etc. I was doing everything I could. And so for me, I really do understand these young girls and these people when they are super devoted to their favorite famous person, because it literally becomes a source and a part of your identity. Like, you don't even know who you are aside from these people, aside from this fandom, aside from standing whoever it is that you're standing. It becomes your whole entire world. So it's not lost on me that these people would start to form these parasocial relationships, and what ends up becoming super dangerous about it is the fact that when you're a child, you really don't know any better and you really don't know what's going on. Even more so, your brain isn't even close to being fully developed, so you're just having a whole bunch of stuff going on up here, and it just makes for like pure chaos, in my opinion. Absolute pure chaos. And that's what ended up happening to me, to the point where I struggle with all sorts of identity issues. I struggle with low self-esteem, I struggle with anxiety, depression, all kinds of stuff. It was really crazy out here. But luckily, I was saved and delivered from that lifestyle, because I don't know where I would be if I were still a part of a fandom, because that experience was high-key very crazy. And I could remember literally bawling, sobbing my eyes out because of how emotional I would get when I would go to concerts and see these people in real life, making sure I could get as many pictures and photos and videos and everything of what was going on, to the point where like I couldn't even live in the moment because I was so obsessed with capturing the moment. And that, I feel like, is the pinnacle of fan culture and parasocial relationships. You don't even care about reality, you care more about the fantasy of it all. And that's the tea on that. So let's talk about fans versus fan culture. I think it's easy to see people that are fans of a particular public figure and assume that they themselves engage in fan culture. At this point in history, fan culture and standing is very, very common. So being a part of a fandom is not as strange of a concept as it would have been maybe 10 or 15 years ago. And when thinking about fan culture specifically, I noticed that those fans that are taking their standing to the extreme are usually one of two people: an adult missing key relationships in their life, or a literal child. For adults, they have a certain level of awareness of what's going on whenever it comes to their pursuit of a personal or parasocial relationship with the famous person, whereas children are naive and tend to go with the flow of the river wherever it ends up leading them. And this is dangerous for many reasons, but we won't get into that now. And for the fans that don't end up going to the extreme, they typically can attribute that to a simple admiration of the public figure and their work or lifestyle, depending on if it's a celebrity or influencer. This group is normally less likely to defend said public figure whenever they get into any type of controversy. And this is actually a real life example of separating the art from the artist. Or at least this is the mindset that I'm reminded of when I think about this kind of fan. And in the case of hardcore standing, I've come to the conclusion that if you're missing something, it's easy to fill that hole with a public figure, because this is someone that can't ever judge you or criticize you because of the real life distance between you two. And in theory, this isn't really that big of a deal unless you're engaging in illegal activities. But once children get involved, that's when it can actually become really dangerous. First, kids are super naive, and half the time they don't even have a clue what's going on, and this makes them easily manipulated and taken advantage of. Second, kids can become attached super quickly, so they can't adequately process deception, especially after they've already completely immersed themselves in these different circles. This creates mob mentality, turning kids into little robots. They forget how to think for themselves and instead learn to follow the crowd. Bottom line, with kids, sometimes you don't even realize what's happening until they're in too deep. So what I'm trying to say, and I'll go ahead and use this statement to drive my entire point home, the lines between a normal fan, a devout fan, and a fan that has slipped into a parasocial relationship is very, very blurry and can become so very, very quickly. So aside from it being dangerous for children, what's the problem with fan culture anyway? I'm sure you're all wondering, and that's great because I have a few answers. A few quick fire answers for you actually. And I'm just gonna go read them off because there's no way I'm going to remember all of what I wrote down in one shot. Delusion, power imbalances, naivete, entitlement, abuse, which is a four-way intersection in which the fans are the through line, mob mentality, competition, insecurity in their fan status, pressure to uphold a relationship that is one-sided. And when it comes to that abuse that I said was a four-way intersection, it's basically the idea that the fans abuse each other, the figure abuses the fans abuse outsiders, and the fans abuse the figure. It's a toxic, twisted cycle where everyone ends up getting hurt in the end. The public figure tends to garner a lack of accountability because they are constantly being defended by their supporters, in which anyone who tries to speak out against them, in a lot of cases, are ruthlessly attacked. Fans are also weaponized, and I honestly think this is because of the idol worship that's going on. Fans are oftentimes used as the first line of defense against scrutiny or controversy, and they will stop at nothing to make sure that their fave's name is not tarnished because the celebrity encourages them to do so in a very, very subliminal way. And it's taking advantage of the care and support that the fans give you, and no matter the reason, it's manipulation. And some of the examples that I was thinking about, just as I was thinking about fan culture and what it means to stan and attack people to no end, etc., 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 was Nicki Minaj's fan base, the Barbs, Beyonce's fan base, the Beehives, some K-pop fan bases, especially in the early days, and for more specific video idea purposes, Colleen Ballinger and the Miranda Sings fan base. So let's get into idol worship because this is actually probably my favorite section to talk about when it comes to this topic. I have actually wanted to study idol worship because as somebody that came out of it, it definitely is an interesting and very crazy phenomenon. And I don't say that lightly. I mean that with as much weight as humanly possible. It's absolutely insane. And one of my biggest problems with the concept of having idols is the fact that humans will always disappoint you. Like, without fail. Idolizing public figures is equivalent to viewing them with rose-colored glasses on. There's a blindness present that tends to absolve them from harsh or extreme scrutiny from their fan base. The public figure is exalted to such a high extent in the eyes of the fan, they really can't do much wrong, even if their wrong is blatantly obvious. For example, Nicki Minaj and the Barbs. There have been several instances where I've seen Nicki Minaj get into controversy, and normally when this happens, her fans jump to her defense, regardless of if she's in the wrong or not. And while defending, I have commonly seen other actions like name calling, doxing, sending threats, and just generally attacking anyone that presents an opposing opinion of Nicki. Most of it is pretty excessive a majority of the time. And this is not me saying that everyone that is a Nicki fan does this, but normally the fans that are would consider her to be their idol. And this behavior isn't usually a result of Nicki Minaj telling anyone to do anything, but because she has their undying loyalty, they're willing to go to bat for her regardless of the circumstances. Even further than that, sometimes their behavior is actually justified, and not because Nicki told them to act this way, but because Nicki didn't actually denounce their actions. And sometimes the behavior is low-key encouraged. So the fans think that not only is it okay, but their idol is subtly pushing them to continue. And I want to make it clear that this is not me trying to send any sort of direct attack against Nicki Minaj or her fans. I genuinely do not want the smoke. I just wanted to use this as an example of idol worship because of what I have observed over the years when it comes to a public figure and their fan base. Because I know how you girlies like to tussle. And I don't like to tussle. In fact, I don't want to tussle. End of PSA. Point blank period, when it comes to idol worship, people tend to become very, very blind. Fans develop a false sense of reality, but the true reality is whoever it is that you're worshiping, whatever idol you have, whether it be a celebrity, influencer, public figure, whatever, that person is a human. And humans make mistakes because they're not perfect. When you place your faith, your hope, your identity, the fullness of your being in this person, they are bound to disappoint you. They are bound to mess up. And at a certain point, you realize that they can't actually help you. They don't actually care about you, and they don't actually love you aside from the money that you make them by supporting them in their career. And most of all, they don't know you. And most of the time, they don't really want to know you. There's nothing they can do for you in your real life. And this is a case-by-case basis and definitely depends on who you are. But for the most part and in most cases, these things reign true. And it just is what it is. And when I look at it from the perspective of somebody that has accumulated a little bit of a following, I'm not saying that y'all worship me or I have your undying loyalty as people that support my work. I hope y'all not out here worshiping me. In fact, please don't worship me. Go live your life. Please don't worship me. But at a certain point, it is hard to know 100% of the people that follow you, especially when the number is constantly going up and up and up and up and up. You can know a few people, especially if they're super active with you and engage often. After a while, you start to recognize certain faces and names here and there. I just don't think there's any way possible for me to know every single person that follows me, and I think it would be ridiculous for anyone to expect me to do so. Now, imagine a public figure with millions and millions of followers. There's absolutely no way, and that's my point. And finally, in this section, I kind of want to talk about the 5 close friends theory, because this is a conversation that I had with one of my friends a while ago, and they kind of let me in onto this information that there was a study being conducted about the fact that you could only really have and maintain over 5 close relationships at a time in your life. And it kind of blew my mind because it made me take a step back and look at the relationships that I have in my life. And at the end of it, I kind of realized that I do in fact really only have 5 close relationships, and when I try to juggle more, it never ends up working out. Like right now, I have all 5 slots filled, and I could not possibly imagine having to manage over another. I went to research that a little bit, and this is actually what I found. By this theory, if a public figure is filling their close relationships and other layers of their relationship circles with people that are in their real life, how much could we expect for them to fit fans and supporters that they don't actually know in those extra spots? We just can't. How would they leave room for people that are following them on the internet? I'll give you a hint. It's not much, if any. Alright, so let's talk about the Human Footstools, because I thought that was a hilarious title for this section. I don't know why, but it really just tickled me. And so this is the concept that celebrities at a certain point in their career become entitled to having people supporting them, defending them, and actually being their fans. At some point, it becomes expected that the fans fans will be there instead of being grateful and appreciating the support that you're getting. Of course the fans will be there to feed me grapes while I sit on the couch and get down on all fours so I can put my feet up on their backs. Life does not work that way. It's the idea of having pride regarding your fame versus having humility. As a public figure, if you gain a cult-like following, it becomes super easy to get used to being coddled and saved when something goes wrong or controversies arise. It reminds me of indentured servitude in a way. Of course, the fans are a part of the fandom because they want to be, but it still kind of reminds me of slavery because they aren't being paid for the work that they put in, but they're simply there to get what they as an individual need out of that one-sided parasocial relationship. And this is merely to sustain them in their personal lives. In return, the celebrity is able to get support, which then translates into money, first line of defense, exaltation, and a greater level of fame and notoriety. Human footstools are like pawns. They're the throwaways that don't have as much value as the key player because they are seen as easily disposable. And the celebrity is not generally faulted for using them like plastic silverware. This sense of entitlement and invincibility can be traced through to any popular public figure that has ever been involved in any sort of detrimental controversy, such as James Charles, Shane Dawson, Jeffree Star, the Paul brothers, so on and so forth. And it really adds up to this sense of arrogance that they are untouchable. And this makes them move in ways where they think they can do whatever they want and get away with it. And I can only hope that Colleen doesn't fall into it, even after everything that's happened to her. But this is what happens when parasocial relationships take a dark turn. So that is the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate your love, your support, your patience, everything. It is genuinely so amazing how you guys are able to sit around and wait until I come out with new content, especially because I have been super inconsistent, but I just graduated from college, so I am free. I'm a free bird. I can make as much content as I want whenever I want, so I'm really starting to get into the groove and hang of making more content more often, more frequently, all of the things. So I just want to thank you guys so much for your patience with me for these last couple of years, because I know it's been kind of hard to enjoy my content but me not post that much. So thank you so much. Like, I really appreciate it, and I am really in awe of you guys' love and support. It means so much to me. So if you have not already joined the family and you like this video and you want to see more content like this, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to this channel. If you want to keep up with my beauty and lifestyle content, I post vlogs, natural hair videos, all types of stuff. You can subscribe to that channel as well. And if you want to keep up with me outside of YouTube, you can follow me on all of my social media. I'll make sure to have everything on the screen and link down below. Another huge special shout out to my friends over at Dossier. Thank you so much for sponsoring that portion of the video. You guys know I love Dossier. I love everything that they stand for in terms of making perfume affordable and giving access to luxury spaces to people that don't necessarily have luxury kind of money. It's actually top tier A1. So for all of the information on how you can get your own luxury fragrance, I will make sure to include all of that in the description, so don't forget to check down there, because that is where I'm gonna put you on. That's where the plug is. So go to the description box. You're gonna love it. You're gonna have fun. Absolutely love all of their inspired fragrances. Every one that I have smelled so far has been so freaking close to the original, and I just think it's incredible. It's an incredible way for people to be able to have a luxury experience without necessarily paying the luxury price. So top tier A1, I freaking love it. So yeah, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, follow me, all the things, and I will definitely see you guys in my next video. Thank you so much. I love you, and yeah, don't forget to be the light, and I'll see you next time. Bye.